Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We are kicking off a series of state-specific webinars where we discuss specific states and the requirements needed for the cannabis cultivation licenses. Today we have Brian Schroeder, Johnny Burgoon, and Mark Rich on the line to talk to you about this. My name is Tara Wilsworth. In the background are my idiot cats. Ignore them. I do marketing for Prospiant, so you see the email Tara from Prospiant, and that's me. I am a real person. So with that, I'm going to kick it off, and the guys can do introductions.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us this afternoon. My name is Brian Schroeder. I am the East Coast sales manager for Prospiant. I handle all of our cannabis projects over on the East Coast. So yeah, I'll be your point of contact to discuss any project-specific questions that you might have, and really excited to bring this information to everybody today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Johnny Burgoon. I'm a solutions architect for the cannabis department here at Prospiant. Been with the company for 10 years, all in cannabis, and I help customers basically scope and prepare for their license approvals.
And then I'm Mark Rich. I'm a systems integration engineer here at Prospiant, working under Johnny, kind of pre-contract scoping of equipment. I do all the engineering side for the lighting, the irrigation, HVAC, really any of the systems that go inside of the grow. So.
And if anybody has any questions while we're going, just use the chat feature. I'll ask them as live so that they make sense in context.
Yeah, so diving right in, this is obviously a webinar specifically targeted at Maryland. There's definitely the upcoming rounds of licenses that they're going to award for the recreational market, which recently launched a few months ago. So, as you might already know, they're going to award licenses in two separate rounds in Maryland. So these licenses are going to be divided into social equity licenses and standard licenses. To qualify as a social equity applicant, 65% of ownership and control of the business must be held by one or more individuals that lived or went to school in a community with a disproportionate number of cannabis-related offenses. So that means you had to have, for the 5 out of the last 10 years, either lived in one of those disproportionately impacted areas or went to public school there. Additionally, Pell Grant recipients who attended a college where at least 40% of the students who attended that college were qualified for federal financial aid can also qualify for the social equity license. Many of you probably already know this, but I always find it important to mention that, just especially as we are approaching the license window, the license application window for that type of license. It's important to make sure you have all those boxes checked. So they're going to be handing out 20 regular cultivation licenses in that social equity round, and another 30 micro cultivation licenses, which are limited to 10,000 square feet of canopy space. And those will all be awarded in the same round. The application window opens in September, and the Maryland Cannabis Commission is planning on awarding those licenses in January of 2024. So those applicants are going to be entered into a lottery based on a pass-fail basis, where the winners are going to be drawn. So the standard, moving on to the standard license application window, that will actually open up in January, and those licenses are expected to be awarded around the beginning of Q2 in April of 2024. So with that round, there will be another 45 to 50 standard cultivation licenses and another 70 micro cultivation licenses that will also be limited to 10,000 square feet, just like the social equity.
If they are, if applications are taken in January, will it be how long before they issue them?
They're looking at issuing those licenses around April. Is what the word on the street is from talking to people that are going to be working on that. So yeah, it's about a 3 to 4 month process from the application to the license being awarded in both cases.
Okay.
So yeah, obviously there's a lot of considerations that you need to go through on the application side of things. It's a super involved process, and it's extremely important to make sure that you're diligently completing that application according to the criteria outlined by the Maryland Cannabis Commission. You have to get into that lottery even to be have a chance to receive one of those licenses. So this includes developing a detailed operational plan for cultivation or manufacturing processes that you're going to house on site. It ensures that you comply with all safety and security regulations that the state and municipalities are going to lay out. And it's also extremely important to have an effective business plan that demonstrates your likelihood of success and provides an appropriate working environment for your employees. So, the commission obviously wants to make sure that your business is sustainable and is able to withstand the test of time and the ups and downs of the cannabis industry. And additionally, especially on the social equity side of things, having a robust diversity plan that really shows how you're going to promote inclusivity and throughout both your business and the cannabis industry can help strengthen your application and make sure that you get selected to be in that lottery. So all that to say, we highly recommend hiring an application writer or bringing in an application writer to your staff who understands what this process is going to look like. They've probably been through it before. Each state is going to be much different from the next, but there are consultants who have been awarded licenses across a lot of different states. They've worked with independent operators as well as MSOs. And we definitely have a few connections that we can contact anybody with just to make sure that if they're interested on that side of things, make sure that their plan's completely coherent, because that's a massive undertaking typically. So it's crucial to understand. Once you get into that license application, it's crucial to understand what your solutions providers' capabilities are going to be. So at Prospient, we are a full turnkey solution provider, which means that we handle the structure itself and we provide the equipment that you're going to need to grow inside that structure. And we also integrate all of that equipment together in a cohesive grow plan. So that means we're able to act as the general contractor for construction of the project from start to finish. We are the structure manufacturer. And basically that ensures that there's no scope gaps between multiple service providers on one project. So we in many cases take on sole ownership of that project. And we'll handle everything from pulling permits at the beginning all the way through full completion, which allows you to focus on getting the many other aspects of your business up and running. So, this is very important, and I'll let Mark kind of take over here on the next slide, but you really do need to consider all of your growing systems in that overall cultivation plan from the start. There's equipment like HVAC, supplemental lighting, irrigation and fertigation, controls, CO2 supplementation, and more that all need to be properly integrated together in order to achieve maximum operational efficiency in those grow zones. For example, the amount of water that you use in irrigation into each plant will dictate the size that the HVAC system needs to be. So taking it a step further, your HVAC and irrigation system both need to be integrated with a controller. So equipment selection becomes really crucial because you need to make sure that everything is able to work with each other, and that it's not stepping on each other's toes, and you're not duplicating efforts with equipment that you don't need. So typically with a timeline on a full turnkey build out would be about 10 to 12 months from permit approvals. If there's no major issues that arise. and we would turn everything over to you and your grower. So, obviously finding the grower is going to be crucial because they're going to be responsible for the end product that comes out of your facility. And, Maryland, like many states on the East Coast, is a little bit tougher of a growing environment than out west because, you're going to have higher humidity, which breeds more disease like powdery mildew and mold. So, the right grower in the right environment that you're creating with your structure can make a world of difference when you're approaching these issues. So that kind of leads me to Mark Rich. He's our systems integration engineer, and he'll talk a little bit more about the different growing environments in detail, as well as how your business strategy is going to influence your grow plan.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So really, when you're looking on how you're going to cultivate, there's three, kind of call it four different ways that you can go about your cultivation. So the first one's going to be just an outdoor greenhouse. So this could be, a sealed greenhouse. This could just be an outdoor grow. But with this, if you're going with a sealed greenhouse, this is going to be essentially an indoor grow, but with the glass roof. So you're taking advantage of the sun that comes, which is free and basically supplies your plant the light to grow. But then from there, you can go into the indoor grow where you can have a greenhouse structure with metal insulated panel on the roof. You can have just a standard steel structure. A lot of ways an indoor grow can look. But with this one, the big thing to kind of take into account is everything has to be supplied by yourself. So with this, you have to supply all the supplemental lighting, all the HVAC within the grow zone is going to be done mechanically. There's a lot of different ways that if you don't have one system right, it's going to interfere with a different system, and then it's going to kind of cause this chain reaction of issues within there. So making sure everything's really dialed in on a sealed greenhouse and an indoor grow is going to be super important. And then the third one that we're kind of looking at here is going to what we're calling like a hybrid greenhouse. So with this is it's going to still be a greenhouse structure, so you're still taking advantage of that natural sunlight coming in. But with it, instead of doing your HVAC, your cooling and your dehumidification mechanically, you're going to be doing it by using vents and fans. So basically, you're taking outdoor air and you are using that to cool and dehumidify your grow zone, pulling it through a pad wall. So each one's going to have its different separate issues that arise with each one and different challenges, but all three are very capable of growing very good premium flower. It's just a matter of kind of what you're looking at for your specific business. And that's kind of where I'll take us into the next slide here with the business strategy. So a lot of times when we're working with a client, we're kind of asking them these questions, because if you don't have these types of questions answered, you can't really have a business plan and you can't have this facility up and running and being successful in the long term. So first one we're looking at is just how much cannabis do you want to grow? Do you know how much your yields are going to be? Have you grown before and you know how many grams per square foot of canopy you're going to be able to get? And then from there, if you know exactly how much you want to produce, we can do the back calculations into how much square footage you need of canopy. But this is a big one here. If you don't want to grow more than you can sell, and you don't want to be able to sell more than you can grow, you don't want to have that problem. So this is something that's really important to help with the longevity of your business. And then that kind of leads into the second one is, who are you going to sell your cannabis or hemp to? Do you have somebody already lined up to do it? Do you have a processor on your team? Do you have processing equipment on site? These are some of the key steps of after you growing it, which is one of the hardest parts of this whole business, right? Where do you go? How do you make the revenue off of it? And if you don't have those actions in place before going through this full design build aspect of the project, it's going to be a major issue, and you might have extra product on your hands that you aren't able to sell, and then you end up just wasting the operational money to cultivate that. And then the third one here is just what other type of revenue opportunities do you have to generate additional revenue? Are you going to look at different types of hemp, different types of cultivars, different types of products just in general? Are you looking to do it where you're selling only premium flower and you're sending shake and trim to processing and just using that, or are you looking to just grow biomass and just do processed product lines? That's another thing that's really important to have in place and kind of figured out before you're going through this. And then the biggest one is going to be, and this is coming more and more common in a lot of these states that have gone recreational, is how do you reduce your OpEx? How can you make sure that you're cultivating at the cheapest you possibly can while still generating the revenue and the premium grade flower that you're expecting? This is something that if you don't plan for it day one, it is significantly harder to go in and retrofit to have lower energy costs a year or two down the line when the market goes from $3,000 a pound down to $1,000 a pound. So having that mindset and really trying to cultivate as efficiently as possible when it comes to an OpEx side is extremely crucial, because even if you are operating at high costs and that price per pound super high, you might be successful for a year or two, but 5 years down the line, you can't compete anymore, and your business you have to go out of business because you can't compete with it. And then from there, what are your future look like? Are you looking to just stay at 10,000 square foot, or are you looking to add 10,000 square foot of canopy every year up until 100,000 square foot? There's a lot of cost saving aspects, whether it be water tanks, wells, however it may be. If you know what you're looking to do in the future, you can plan for that on step one and save yourself tons of money down the line and just help with the business longevity. And then again, what kind of products do you want to produce? Kind of talked about that one. And then the last one just being, who do you want to be your partner in this? Are you trying to piecemeal everything else, where you go and get the environmental controls by yourself, you get the PVC pipe by yourself, or are you looking for somebody to supply all of this and take the headache and the time away from yourself so that you can focus on the actual business aspects instead of, oh, I need to get this project up and constructed right away. A lot of times what we see is people try to piece everything together because they think it can save them 5 to 10%, but in the long run they don't know what they don't know, and it ends up costing them 10 to 30% more than if they just went with one person to supply all of it and they had to deal with all the headaches along the timeline. So a lot of good questions to ask yourself and a lot of good things to know. If you ever need any answers or any help on any of these, we're always here. We deal with these on a daily basis, so just feel free to reach out if you need help on any of these questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's always important. We obviously know that cannabis is a very heavily regulated and taxed industry. So, just always want to make a note that these are very important things to keep in mind as you're building those business plans and going through the application. Especially at the state and municipal level. It can be very different from town to town. So, zoning ordinances can influence the systems that need to be included in these facilities. Fire suppression is always a big question. So, depending on how the municipality has that property zoned, that can influence what you'll need to do inside that structure. So, also many municipalities have directives on things like the discharge of wastewater. And, some municipalities will, say you need to recapture any irrigation water, retreat that, and then you can put that back into, the water table and everything. So facility security, odor control, these are all things that, a lot of state regulatory agencies are very concerned with. And we make sure to keep all of those in mind when we're going through both the design process and the build out process of your facility. So it's much easier to tackle all of these issues on the front end of things. If we can plan accordingly, we avoid any change orders and delays that pop up throughout that project. And then obviously, taxes can be pretty high on this product. So we always recommend that as you're developing your pro formas and your business plans, make sure you know exactly what your tax rate is going to be, because that's going to play a major a major role into your ROI. So that also kind of plays in. Some of these things play into your site selection as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Johnny Burgoon here to discuss a little bit more how that can impact your project.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. So site evaluation, anytime you're looking at land, the very first thing you really got to ask yourself is not only from the county and state level, have you talked to the municipal leaders of that little township or that neighborhood? Have you gone to any of the residential forums? Sometimes there's a lot of activity for and against in some neighborhoods, right? So you have to know at the municipal level where it's going and what that approval process is, right? We've had plenty of states roll out and say, hey, we're ready to release this cannabis market into your area, only to have the local municipalities turn people down or string out the process so that it slows down so they have time to analyze what's going on. So it's really important that whenever you're selecting a site, you kind of understand the networking of that, the town and how the municipality feels and how the residents feel about that business coming in before you even get started. Then you can kind of look at, its proximity to highways. Climate factors are a huge thing. In Massachusetts, there your humidity is high year round. You almost cannot get by without some form of mechanical dehumidification or a really experienced grower to keep the powdery mildew away. The land cost is relatively high there, unless you get way out into the suburbs. But naturally, as you get further out of the city, there's other issues that pop up like transportation and proximity to highways, all those things, right? And also in your area, we've had areas that were extremely granite ridden and needed a lot of civil work, a lot of extra civil work from what we would plan for a normal site. Like we had to do some blasting, and then naturally to do blasting, you have to get out and get approvals from those same residents, from those same municipalities to move the earth there. So these are all things that you really need to think about in that site evaluation, and it would behoove you to spend a little money up front and do a really good subsurface exploration with the soil borings, things like that, to really understand what you're getting into before you commit to put a business there. So there are so many things that go into that. On the next slide here, we've got utilities are another huge one. And again, the further you move out of the city, the bigger the problem is, just having access to a good three-phase power. But also Maryland's one of the states that is very energy conscious. They're very in tune with the cannabis industry and how much electric it takes to run those. Hence, Mark's conversation about the types of facilities that you use. Naturally, if you have a glass roof greenhouse that's letting sunlight in, you're consuming less energy for your lights. However, you consume a little more energy for the HVACD if you go sealed versus not sealed. So there's all these factors that go in there. And when you're choosing your provider to help you, whether it's a turnkey or a general contractor, and you're doing some of it yourself, you need to be in tune with those things. The utilities are probably one of the most overlooked things out there. Cannabis, obviously, every time you harvest, it's going to be $1 million for every room. So naturally, you're not going to want to risk losing that crop in the event of a power outage. So we highly suggest a backup generator. You need to know if there's natural gas out there, or you're going to run totally off electric. Natural gas helps a lot on the heat side from a cost standpoint. And there's a lot of different things you can do with gas. There's liquid natural gas, and there's the municipal supplied natural gas, or we could even use a propane type gas. So it's really important in those considerations, understanding these utilities. Water is another big one. As Brian said, the watershed is severely protected there, which is great. However, it creates problems with discharge and treatment of water. That all costs money. And you really need to be cognizant of the water type there. because we also, we don't want to put water that contains heavy metals or anything into your plants. So, you're going to need to understand what that water looks like before you plan on putting a site here, so that we understand how much, we have to treat it before use. So those are some of the things on utilities. This one, Brian, I think you were going to speak on it, but I'll go ahead and take this one. This is the building mandates, compliance, and permits. Brian started to allude to like the fire, the fire suppression, odor mitigation, security. All those things are really come down to the state's requirements on them. And on top of that, in the traditional agriculture days, greenhouses and grow facilities were zoned as agricultural, and they were exempt from a lot of the building permit processes. However, as cannabis rolled in and, they become a more intensely grown product, meaning there's people in the buildings all the time. They're constantly tending plants. It's not a plant and grow type of thing like it is in the outdoors. They've started to zone these as light manufacturing facilities, not agriculture. So that requires us to follow the full building permits, and those state by state become different animals, because you have to go and get an architect, a civil, a geotechnical guy, mechanical engineers. All the drawings got to be engineered, stamped, and delivered to the building department and approved. And you also have to follow all the inspections that come with that, which, in the old days, agriculture side did not have to do that. Many places near the city are now requiring odor mitigation, because, the plant smells, as bad growing as it does when it's burning. So there's a lot of the residents and things in the surrounding areas don't like that. And one thing that's really popping its head up even more serious today than when we started is security. There have been a record number of smash and grabs and break-ins and things like that. Security is becoming a bigger issue with requiring vaults and safe storage and digital tracking on every single plant and every single package. So all of those you need to kind of build into your business plan. As Mark was alluding, these are the things up front that are going to cost you as part of your build here. The next slide is growing equipment. Mark, I'm going to let you handle that one.
Yep. Thanks, Johnny. So talking growing equipment, there's a lot of different things to talk about. A lot of it is going to be what's going to help you achieve the fastest ROI basically on this business, right? So you can cultivate with a very small amount of equipment, but the end product is not going to be of the same quality as if you had the right equipment in there to cultivate the most premium flower you could. So the first one and the most important is the automated environmental control. So this is going to be a controller where every single piece of equipment within your facility is tied and talking back to this main controller. So there is no having a standalone rooftop unit for your HVAC and hoping that works alongside the extra dehumidifiers you have within the zone. Every single piece of equipment is going to be tied back to this environmental controller, and everything is going to be able to be changed, looked at, and edited through you. So you don't have to go and hit 3 or 4 different buttons. It's just one button. Everything kind of works together through the algorithms with it. So that's going to be your most important piece of equipment. It's not going to be the cheapest, but it's definitely going to be worth the capital investment right away. And then the second one is the heating and cooling systems. So there's a lot of different ways you can do this. A lot of them are going to be more efficient than others. Some of them are going to be more expensive, but ensuring that you can get the right temperature within your zones is crucial. If you want to grow at 78 and you can't seem to get your greenhouse down below 84, that's an issue, and that's something that you have to change around. And it's something that if you had the right equipment in there and it's an achievable goal, you should be able to get it. You shouldn't have to change the way you grow or different parameters within the environmental controls because your heating and cooling systems aren't up to par and they weren't spec'd in correctly when this whole project was kind of coming on board. So making sure that those are designed and engineered correctly the first time is going to be extremely important. Ventilation, this is going to be the most important on a hybrid greenhouse. So making sure that you have the correct amount of airflow coming in and out. And this, we usually design around one air exchange per minute. Sometimes we even do more than one air exchange per minute. But with this, we're really trying to make sure that we can get all of the hot air out of that zone back outside and bring in cooler air through that pad wall so you can get that cooling effect almost immediately. It doesn't have to take a 5-minute timeline for you to go from the 84 degrees down to the 78, kind of like in the scenario we were talking about earlier. Another one here is going to be lighting. And when it comes to lighting, this is in a greenhouse, you're going to get that natural free lighting. And the indoor, you're going to be supplying all the supplemental lighting. And the biggest thing to look at when you're trying to design a light system is what is the ROI of growing at 35 DLI versus 50 DLI? Is it worth spending the extra capital investment as well as upping your OPEX if the yield numbers don't increase exponentially with that? So working alongside that and kind of figuring that out, not just going with, oh, I've always grown at 30 DLI, I'm going to keep doing that. Looking at some of the numbers and really making sure that it's the best decision for your business to continue and the longevity of your business. Irrigation and fertigation, this is going to be a lifesaver. You don't have to go in there and hand water every single plant every single day. Your plants get watered the exact amount of water you want them to at exactly the same time every single day. There is no variance with this. It allows to make sure that there's no extra water leaking out and causing higher humidity within the rooms. Irrigation and fertigation systems are essential and just really help you dial in the environment as well as feed the plant exactly what you're looking to feed. And then benches, a lot of facilities that we look at and work with are using benches. This is just pulling the actual canopy up maybe 18 to 30 inches off the ground, allowing airflow underneath the plants. You can provide airflow directly to the root zone. You can help dry out the media faster. There's a lot of different ways to do this. You can do pallet style benchings. You can do rolling benches, stationary benches. All of them have their downfalls, but all have their upsides as well. So it's really important that you kind of look at all of the options when designing your facility and make sure that you're picking the correct one for that. So turn it back over to you guys.
All right, and lastly, with these great facilities, it requires a great O&M plan. Preventive maintenance is the best way. These structures are not a build it and forget it kind of thing. They're a living, breathing, moving machine every day. Pests love to get on plants, especially when they're in an environment that is perfect for the plant and for them. So I always say, you can grow just as big a pests as you can plants because you're providing the perfect environment here. So it's important to have a good plan for pest control. Part of your SOPs really have to dig in and help your employees remain clean, remain the environment clean. It's good to constantly sit back and look at equipment upgrades, what equipment, new technology is coming out that we can put in place to prevent that. Repair and maintenance is going to be an everyday thing. The shade and the blackout screen is probably one of the most replaced things in a greenhouse. They open and close every day based on the sunlight if you're in the greenhouse style. And they're just moving parts. So it's important to inspect them and fix them regularly and to have a good preventive maintenance plan where you're walking around, you're checking on these things. Another thing that the type of irrigation that we use uses a lot of filtration that you'll need to maintain those filters, change those out on a regular basis. But all of this really comes back to your SOPs, and the SOPs really spell out how often you're going to change filters, replace lights, how you're going to do your inspections, your cleaning processes, and things like that for people going in and out of the flower zones. Most pathogens get introduced at the very beginning, either in seeding or in taking cuttings, and they're transferred into the flower zones that way. And then the next most important thing is once they get into the environment, if the environmental settings aren't right, it could form those to, or I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. But once you get into those environments, it can having bad set points can also spur those mold spores and things like that to develop. And with that, Brian, the next slide.
Yeah, so we tell you this not just because we're figuring out for the first time. We've done over 200 cannabis facilities across the country to date. That represents over 2 million square feet of canopy in production. We've got a team of designers, engineers, and construction professionals, along with Mark and Johnny, that help to make your cultivation facility, a success, both from the application standpoint and from the project execution side of things. So we've got facilities across North America. We've got a manufacturing facility in Denver, Colorado, as well as Cincinnati, Ohio. And we've got another one right outside of Leamington, Ontario. So we've got the entirety of the continent pretty much covered up here. And I really thank everybody for your time. And we can open up this session to any questions that you want to ask directly.
Thank you, Brian. If anyone has any questions, just put them in the chat box, and we'll be able to ask them right here. If you don't do that, or if you're watching this on demand, these are the email addresses for Brian, Johnny, and Mark. So you can just email them directly and get your questions answered. Sometimes it's good to ask the group, because then everybody gets the answer at the same time. So, any questions? I think it was all pretty self-explanatory, though, so that's probably why there are no questions. So well done. Good job.
Yeah, and please feel free to reach out directly with any questions, comments, conversations that you're interested in having. Johnny, Mark, and I are always available, and we love talking to people about the industry as a whole. So please don't be shy.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for attending.
Thanks, everyone.
And for the three of you to present. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.